Hello from Pokradec, Albania. I have a very special guest with me today. I have a feeling that a lot of you will recognize him, but for those of you who don't, joining me today is Dan from the popular YouTube channel Vagabond Awake. Dan has been slow traveling the world for the better part of the last 2 decades with his lovely partner Qiang. Qiang also has a popular YouTube channel called Hobo Ventures. Dan, thank you so much for being here with me today.
My pleasure, Andrea. It's nice to meet you virtually.
So Dan, where in the world are you right now?
Chung and I are in Da Nang, Vietnam. We've been in Da Nang for about 2.5 months, a couple more weeks to go.
Awesome. So you've built an amazing life traveling the world, but I'm curious, what did home look like for you before all this began?
It was pretty straightforward, but I was in a job which I didn't feel was creatively satisfying to me, and I was single. My wife had left me, and she had they were her kids before we met, but she took the kids with her, so there wasn't much for me to do in that city other than to date and go out to eat and try to make new friends and stuff. And so it just wasn't really tied to it so much anymore. And I always had this dream about traveling the world, and the opportunity came, and I took it. And I was looking for a few years before that opportunity came, and so I definitely was ready to go and happy to go when the time came.
And remind me, where did you end up that first time that opportunity came?
I first took a job in New Delhi, India, and I was there, I think, almost 30 months. I went on a 2-year contract, and but it was extended about 6 months, and then eventually I read a book called The 4 Hour Work Week by Tim Ferriss, and he
Yeah.
talks about starting an online business that will pay you no matter where you are in the world. And so I read that book, and I had decided that I wanted to no longer be geographically dependent on my income. And so I quit that job and started traveling. I told my boss that I'm willing to work for you still and stay and for this Indian company, but I didn't want to be stuck at a desk anymore. I said I only want to work half time, so I said half pay, half time, and I'm happy to keep the job. And luckily, he went for it. So I had both the income and the time.
Oh, wonderful. That's a good start.
Yeah.
I've heard you mentioned this now, and I've heard you talk about this in other videos. You've talked about always having this deep pull to travel the world ever since you were of young age.
Yeah.
Do you think that kind of drive, that innate drive for this lifestyle is essential for someone to live like this, or is it something that you can kind of develop along the way?
Um, I don't know. I think something that you think you'll like, um, but you've never done. It may take or it may not. Like I had a friend who, after I'd been outside the US for about 10 years, she finally took her first international trip to Paris. And she had dreamed about it certainly for a few years when she set it all up. But when she got there, she was just like, she just wasn't comfortable with the food there and not being able to speak English. And so she had this idea in her head that she would love traveling and being in Paris and different parts of Europe, but it didn't really take for her. She just felt uncomfortable. And so she went home. And so it's not, I think dreams are sometimes, they don't hold, once you're living the dream, and sometimes they do. I think just on the flip side of that, I think there are people that don't really know how much they would love this lifestyle. They just don't know. But so maybe just something happens in their life. They end up doing something they never dreamed about. Like for me, chocolate ice cream. I didn't have to know about chocolate ice cream, but once I ate it, it's hard for me to eat. Really, it's only chocolate and coffee ice cream are the two I'm always looking for. So without the dream of chocolate or coffee ice cream, I knew it right away when I tasted it. So
Sure.
I think it can go either way.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm curious, how do you two pick your next destination? Is there some strategic process or is it just on a whim?
Well, originally, after I left India, and I worked for them, I think for like another 3 years on the road. And eventually, one of the people there in India, it was doing so well at what I was doing. I had taught someone basically replaced myself. And so that company didn't really need me anymore. And so, but I ended up with another job after about 6 months that I could do remotely. And I think that lasted for about a year and a half. And that was it for me. I thought, I'm not going to work for anyone else again. And even though I had great bosses, both when I was in the US, I love my bosses pretty much everywhere I've been, but that doesn't mean you like your job, you know? And so once I finally, that second job was gone, I thought, I'm not really a job person. Something else has to happen in my life. And so I had read that 4 Hour Work Week and I had never really started a business. And so I took 40,000, set it aside and said, I didn't want to spend all my savings because I was still too young, at the time. I had to worry about retirement. And I thought I'll just put 40K aside and I'll live on that as long as I can. But now I'm going to try to build an online business. And it took, once I went full time on YouTube and full time with with memberships and all the stuff I'm doing, it was about 18 months, where my income was about equal to my spend rate. And what's key about that, and why I want to talk about it is because um, what got us talking about retire cheap in paradise is because we wanted that 40,000 to last as long as it could so I could build an income. So the idea was not to, if I won the lottery, great, but I didn't win the lottery. I had to make money on the internet. And so I wanted to make sure I had enough time to do it. And so if I could take that 40K and I make it at 1,000 a month, I could have 40 months to do it. So I originally said 2,000 a month we'll try to live on. And Qiang said, no, let's try to do it on 1,000. And so that focuses on places where we could live on $1,000 a month. And that's what created the niche. That's what created the following, is the need to not have a job and be able to live on $1,000 a month. And so there are people in the States now that are getting nearing retirement age and they have Social Security checks, 1,000, 1,500, 2,000. And so there's this whole niche of people that don't have as much money that they thought they would as they approach retirement. Now, in general, it's not that easy to live on 1,000 a month in many places. You really have to be careful, and you don't really know what it'll cost you till you go somewhere and see what your bills are. But that's what got that idea of living on $1,000 a month going.
Nice. Thank you so much for sharing that.
Yeah.
Um, your life is basically a dream scenario for a lot of people, and probably a lot of people watching this right now. I think there are a lot of people who maybe want this, but can't really see the path for themselves, or might even think it's impossible for them to achieve this lifestyle. Maybe they just kind of feel stuck in the US or stuck in the rat race. What would you tell those people, and what do you think separates the dreamers from the doers?
Um, that's an interesting question. What separates dreamers from doers? Um, I, I think one of the things is just kind of like being a pit bull on an idea. You just really you need a good idea. If the idea is terrible, it's not going to fly. But if once you have an idea and you've done enough reading about it to figure out there's a need in this idea, then I think the best way to create an income that follows you wherever you go all over the world is some kind of business information, some kind of information business online. And that's what mine is. It teaches people how to do what I do, both where they can live for less. And it's hard to live on 1,000 a month now overseas, and now it's more like 1,500, 2,000. But because now what are we, 8 years later? But that's important. There's just people don't have, people that had $1,000 check back then, there's been on Social Security, for example, in the US, it gets a bump every year, the cost of living adjustment. And so that's gone up a little bit, and the inflation has gone up around the world. So we're still kind of in the same niche. It's just the niche is higher now. It's around 15. Now, there's still people that live on less than, 1,500. Some of them are able to even live on less than 1,000, but it's in very specific countries. And we have many people on my channel that share that kind of thing. And often it's a person who has some sort of self-control. They not only have a pit bull idea, and Craig's this way, I think. He had a pit bull idea about what his life was going to be about, and he followed through on it. He was able to be really tight with money, ended up buying a farm and all that, So And I think that's just what it is. You just have to put your mind to it. And I don't know. Sometimes the idea of a dreamer, I think, is oversold. I think it's just somebody, it's dreaming if unless you get your butt out of the chair and go do something with your idea, it's not really helpful to be a great dreamer. You need the dream in the first place, but then you need action. You got to move forward. You got to get up every morning and you got to stay on that. And you also have to make changes and adjust as you go. If something's not working, you have to either do more of it or you have to figure out some way to make it work. I mean, when I first started my channel, I was trying to do affiliate marketing. That's where you put like links to hotels and buy these products and stay in this hotel and that just totally bombed. I probably did that for at least 6 months, and it wasn't until I started a membership program where people when I was teaching people and had a membership program. And when I switched to that, it was really only about a year when it really took off for me. So you have to be able to adjust, have a really strong idea of what you want your life to look out like, but be willing to adjust and keep focusing on that maybe adapted target until you get what you want.
Yeah, for sure. So it sounds like the dream is necessary, but then some drive behind it, but then the ability to be flexible and pivot as needed.
Yeah, so you have to basically, I don't know, you have to be a pit bull, but realize when something's not working and then make a change to it and see if that works. It has sort of an adaptive. I think the way I've heard people talk about it is don't try to be perfect, just do it wrong very fast until you know what I mean. Just do the best idea you have as fast as you can, as often as much action as you can, and then look if it's not getting results, you have to make adjustments in it. But don't just give up and think the whole idea is
Sure.
that. So
Sure. That makes a lot of sense. Good advice. So I saw your recent video where you discuss your heart test results and the costs associated with that. And
yeah,
congratulations on your results showing 100% clear arteries. I'm
thanks.
curious, how much of that how much of your good health do you attribute to living abroad, and how much do you attribute to your diet and exercise routine?
Um, so the only part of it that I would contribute to living abroad is maybe the stress part of it. If you have a lot of stress in your life, your health can go downhill pretty fast.
Sure.
Your mind is one of I mean, it could just really mess with you if you're in the wrong situation.
Yeah.
And so that's important. But for me, it was mainly exercise and diet, I think, is the main things, and the absence of stress. Um, I pretty much had an absence of stress even when I was doing a job I didn't like because I was pretty good at it and my boss trusted me. And so it wasn't really too much stress. It was just not who I was. It was not
Sure.
feeding my creative side. So I would say
Yeah.
you need absence of stress, you need to eat the right foods, and you need to exercise. And there's a lot of people out there that tell you there's only one way to do it. You can only do it this way. But I would say pretty much if you eat whole foods rather than packaged foods with a lot, if you read the label and there's a bunch of ingredients in a food, you probably shouldn't be eating that. You should probably just go back to fruits, vegetables, grains that are, like whole grains. If you're a meat eater, you don't want to eat sausages and bologna. You want to eat just plain meat. I'm a vegetarian, but I don't know that I'm sure vegetarian helps somewhat because it doesn't have the saturated fats. But a lot of people now are selling this idea of it's only meat, only eat meat, and just stay away from seed oils. I don't know if that's true or not, but I know that I don't know if that's true long term. It probably is going to
Sure.
lower. It's probably going to help because they don't have inflammation in their body if they're eating that way. It reduces inflammation, but I don't know that over long term so I'm not really a source for that kind of information. I'm really about travel, but I would say the main idea is if you eat whole foods and don't eat processed foods, that's probably the most important part. And just be moderate with it and drink a lot of water, I would say.
Yeah, awesome. I will have to say that I feel that my access to clean, amazing produce is so much better overseas than it was in the US.
Yeah,
Um, I
that's so
love that.
true. That's so true.
I've heard you and Chung talk about eventually getting a home base and then maybe traveling a little bit from there. Have you thought more about where that might be?
We actually just had that conversation the other day. Again, we have that maybe once a year, and we're not really there yet in terms of wanting hope. I think we just really like the idea of, I sometimes jokingly call it attention deficit disorder. I just get bored. You know what I mean? I like having change in my life, but not just random, ridiculous change, but seeing new places seems to be the change I like, and learning new things, seeing new cultures. And so if I were to park it somewhere, my problem is that I'm a tight ass. Let me just put it that way. I don't want to have a house sitting somewhere around the world for 9 months of the year going, I wonder what that happening in that house now, and worrying if it's being broken into. Or so since we love traveling, it's not really time for us yet. But I could see maybe sometimes if we do one of us lose lost mobility or whatever, we would probably have to park our butts somewhere and maybe travel 3 or 6 months. Maybe as the amount of time per year you want to travel reduces maybe to 3 months, then I could see funding a place for 3 months of the year that I'm
Sure.
not staying in. Or if I have family or roommates or something to pay, at least so I'm not worried about somebody breaking in and stealing everything. But for now, we just like the change, so we don't really have any plans. But in terms of favorites, I mean, every year I do a top 15 places in the world to retire cheap in paradise, and always in the top five are, Malaysia, Vietnam, Thailand. We like Guatemala of all places. We like Albania. Let's see. We enjoyed Ecuador, Peru. We enjoyed. We also like Bali, Indonesia. I mean, just a multitude of places. We really would be totally happy if you
Sure.
held a gun to our head and said you have to stay here for 6 months. There's we have a number of places we would really have a good time.
It'd be hard to pick,
Yeah, it would be
but
hard to pick.
that's a good problem to have.
Yeah, exactly, exactly.
So you've helped thousands of people in their journeys to become expats. You've created ebooks, online courses to help people retire overseas. Did you have any mentors or role models, or did you just kind of figure it all out on your own?
Um, I would say just for me in general, it was just YouTube. When I was going to go to a city, one of the most important things you can do when you go to a new city is to know what neighborhood to park your butt. Like you can't just pick some random neighborhood outside the city because the rent's cheap or something. You want to One of the things I love about being outside the US is I don't need a car anymore. The US is totally a car world, right? It sounds like when you said you shop, you go to 4 stores, but they're all walking distance. So you're like in a neighborhood where everything you need is. Once you've done that, that is such a great feeling. When you don't have a car, you're not putting in gas, you're just going on a nice walks and buying groceries and stuff. Once you've done that, instead of, oh, now I'm on a freeway, I'm gonna go to this place, it's 20 minutes over here, and then it's gonna be an hour over there. That's gone and out of your life, it's so much less stressful. And so the key is picking the part of the city. So I forgot what the question was. Sorry.
I was just asking if you had any role models or mentors that
Oh
helped you
no. I
talk about
would
how YouTube.
Yeah, I just watch YouTube videos.
Yeah.
and to get an idea of neighborhood. And also, here's a little trick for you. Any city in the world, if you go onto Google and you look at the map of the city, you'll see an area that's like tan. And Google has a lot of information about everyone, including their phones, because they have the Android operating system. And so what Google does is it takes that data and makes part of the city like a light tan color, and because that's the area where people are walking. So there's a huge density of people, and they see the speed at which they're walking on their phone, and they make those areas kind of like a tan color. And so that's a great place to look. And then you drop the little Google guy on that spot, and you walk around and say, "Oh, cool! Are there coffee shops? Are there restaurants?" And that's a pretty good way to do it. And then once you know the name of that neighborhood, try to find a YouTube video of somebody who's talking about that neighborhood and to see what they're filming and what they're saying, and you can confirm it that way. But that's one of the most important things we do in all of my reports is tell you where to live in a city. Because once we get there, we often just book a place for 3 or 4 or 5 days. If it's a new city that we haven't been to before, we don't know yet. And we walk around the city and find out our favorite neighborhood. And then we try to find a place in that neighborhood. And that's the most important thing. If you go to any city in the world that you would absolutely love, but you're in the wrong neighborhood and you don't know where that place you want to be is, you could have a terrible time in your favorite city in the world. And so that's the most
Sure.
important part.
That's excellent advice. Thank you.
Sure.
Um, who do you see benefiting the most from your resources? Is it more geared towards retirees, digital nomads, or current expats who are looking to make a change, or kind of all of the above?
Um, Well, originally it was retirees because when you first pick a niche on the internet, you have to do what's called long tail. And that
Mhm.
means you have to have certain words in every single video so people that are searching for that word find the video. So my long tail, every video, almost every video I have, at least for the first 5 years, had the word retire in it. And the other, and so once you figure out a long enough tail where you can get people to watch your videos, and you have an audience, then you can start making a shorter tail on your video titles. I already forgot what the question was. Sorry. It had something to do with the.
Um, you pretty much answered it. I was just asking who your resources would best serve. Is it
Oh, okay. So it
for
started out
retirees?
it started out retirees because of that long tail. But now, we meet young people all over the world that are, oh, I watch your videos, and they're often digital nomads.
Yeah.
Because we tell them about, what's the internet speed, best neighborhood, all this stuff, same stuff they want to know. It's just it's coming up. Once they run into it, they watch it, even though it might have a retire word in it, and they're too young to retire, or they don't want to retire. They don't even think about retirement yet. But so now it's still mostly Americans, and it's mostly people starting around 45 and age and above that watch my channel.
Got it. If you could give one piece of advice to your past self before you moved abroad, what would it be?
Um, Okay, now I haven't had a problem with this because I did it right by accident when I left. But the one thing you have to get right when you're moving overseas, or really if you're slow traveling, moving overseas, once you're leaving your home country, there's one thing you have to get right. You cannot get this wrong. You have to get the banking part right. Because no matter what happens in your life, if something goes bad, you're going to need money. And you don't want your bank shutting down your account because of some stupid thing you didn't know. So focus on banking. And the basic idea is you want to have two or more banks with your money in the States or whatever country you're from, because those are the banks that trust you. And hopefully it's a bank you've been with for 10 or 20 years. Um,
Mhm.
you have two or more banks, each with an ATM card and each with a Visa or MasterCard, maybe even three banks, but a minimum of two. And then no matter where you go in the world, you can take an ATM, one of your two ATM cards, put in a machine and get money out. And that's going to solve most of your problems. Now, you're going to have ATM cards that go missing or stolen, or the coding wears off, it whatever, it doesn't work anymore. So you got the other one, it's a backup. You always need to have access to money. And now if something happens and one of the banks isn't working, but it has more money in it, you can transfer money from one US bank to another bank and pull it out of that card. You want two banks that are totally working and two sets of credit cards at a very minimum. And that's the most important part. Almost any other problem you're going to have overseas, you'll be able to solve it once you can pull money out of a bank.
If you have money.
Yeah, and you also need a lot of the banks now are going away from what they call two-factor authentication using SMS. I
Hmm.
think SMS is right. Yeah. And so they're going away from that because it's not as secure. So what you want to do is set up before you leave your home country, set up two full banking situations and have both of them with online banking where you can log in from your computer, but you need to have two-factor authentication, preferably not SMS. You want it to be like Google Authenticate or whatever the bank wants. Put that on your phone. And also, you can also have a second phone if you have, because
Sure.
if one phone's stolen and you have two-factor authentication for the other bank or whatever, you can make do until you get that phone fixed, and now you have backup phones. And so and you can buy cheap. You can have two Androids that are only $300-400 each, and you
Yeah.
can get into both your banks. You have the two-factor authentication. It's not SMS. It's some kind of authenticator that your bank wants. Once you have money handled and you can access your money, you don't have to really worry about much.
That's excellent advice. Thank you so much for sharing that.
Yeah.
Um, So, what is the legacy you hope your content leaves behind for your audience?
I just want, I thought it was just going to be a way to make money or something when I first started it. But what it turned into was it's a beautiful life. I mean, it's great. Like I go home maybe once a year, once every other year. And so I go see family and friends and stuff, but it's just nice not to think of the neighborhood you grew up in as the only place in the world. It's just fun to to just see the world and see that it's actually, growing up in the US, we're constantly told in movies and music or whatever that it's the greatest country in the world and there's no freedom in all the other places and everything is terrible. Everyone's starving to death around the world. It's really not true. The whole world is a beautiful place. And the US might be your favorite, that's fine, but you might be surprised. Some of these other countries are just amazing. The people are amazing, the food's amazing, the architecture's amazing, the music, the clothing, everything. It's like a crazy, beautiful. It's like going to Disneyland if and only going to Future World or Disneyland's like this, and you're going to go to this one place and you're not going to wander into the other places. It might surprise you what an amazing world it is. And so I think that's probably if people learn anything from me by watching my videos or and eventually doing it themselves, it's just finding out the world's a wonderful place. And
Mm.
that some of what we heard growing up is kind of a little bit propaganda-ish, and the world is actually kind of cool. So,
Yeah, I could not agree more.
yeah,
All right, so I just have one last question for you. Where can
sure.
people go to find your educational materials and your and Chung's amazing content?
Well, Chung's on YouTube at Hobo Ventures. That's Hobo Ventures. And she focuses more like on food and lifestyle kind of stuff. And mine's more about which city, what does it cost, where to stay, what are the restaurants, stuff like that. And mine's at the YouTube channel is called Vagabond Awake. And it's just the word vagabond and the word awake. And but my webpage is called vagabondbuddha.com. And that's where my training courses are at Vagabond Buddha and where my ebooks are. If you're going to any city, that there's reports available there and stuff. And there's a course about how to retire overseas, and I pretty much teach a lot of stuff on there. There's actually a 7-week course there, and I think there's 300 ebooks now of different kinds, both planning and location sort of stuff. And then I have another one that teaches people how to make money online using their business information, sort of business, how to set up the web page and all that, and how to set up a YouTube channel, that kind of stuff.
Wonderful. Well, links to all that will be in the description of this video. Dan, thank you again for being here and for being my first interviewee. I hope you and Chung have many more safe and amazing adventures.
Well, Andrea, it's been a joy being on your channel. Thanks so much for watching.
Thank
And
you.
hey, everybody. Andrea interviewed me today, but I interviewed Andrea before this, and that video is going to be right over here. Go on over there and watch it. Thanks for watching.
Thanks for watching.
Bye bye.